Good evening. My name is Amy Bach. I'm one of the founders of the nonprofit United Policyholders that's bringing you tonight's program. We're sorry for the circumstances that brought you here this evening, but we're glad that you know about us and that you are here to take advantage of the free, nonprofit, non-commercial resources that we provide to disaster-impacted renters and residents of areas that have been hit by wildfires and other types of catastrophes. We're bringing you the information tonight through our Roadmap to Recovery program. We did take some pre-submitted questions. We appreciate those of you who did submit questions. If we get through all the educational material tonight and the pre-submitted questions, we will open the Q&A, but otherwise we'll direct you to some other ways to get questions answered. Our goal tonight is to answer your questions through the information that we're providing. This is how you can follow along with tonight's slide. And I want to reassure you that this recording will be available on our website, as is the slide deck. So we really encourage you to try to relax your shoulders and try to let the information come to you without worrying that you have to take a million notes, because you will have a chance to watch it again, listen to it again, stop it, go back if you miss something, and or watch the slide deck after. So a reminder about United Policyholders, we call ourselves UP. We have been helping disaster survivors and advocating for insurance consumers since 1991. We are not for profit, not for sale, which means we don't take funding from insurance companies, so we can bring you independent information that is in your best interest as somebody who has bought renter's insurance and needs to get the full value of what you bought. We're funded by donations and grants, and we are trusted and respected all across the country. The people on Team Up include our professional staff. That's who we have with us tonight. Our government nonprofit partners, our volunteers. If you went to either of the disaster recovery centers in the early months after the fires, you will have met some of our volunteers, been there, done that, folks that are there to give you empathy and some reassurance that you will get through this process. We do have a lot of partners. We have the Department of Insurance, we have lawyers and public adjusters and CPAs that inform the educational materials that we bring to you. Tonight's program is through the recovery, Roadmap to Recovery program. These are the libraries we have put together for the 2024 and 2025 wildfire impacted communities. In those libraries, we follow a timeline of the decisions that people typically have to make at each step of the recovery, in the beginning phase, in the middle, and long term. And that's what we're about, the long-term recovery. So if you're a renter, most of the action is happening in the first half a year, and that's why we wanted to bring this program to you tonight. And that's our little yellow book that you may find useful, and that will be available through various sources. Just a reminder, we did get a couple of pre-submitted questions that were really seeking legal advice on landlord-tenant law, and that is not something we're able to give. We will be covering issues related to renters insurance claims and coverage. If you do have a specific legal question, we recommend you consult an attorney, but we are here to educate and provide guidance. I'll be here with you tonight. And then I'll be joined by Annie Barber, who's our program liaison, has many years of personal and professional experience, runs our survivor support groups, went through losing her own home in a wildfire, and has worked with, I'm going to say, thousands at this point of people in that situation. We're also joined by Alexis Ricci, our program specialist, who is a subject matter expert in claims, having been an adjuster for insurance companies, also a public adjuster, and then benefiting us and you by joining our team. We'll be covering renters policy basics, frequently asked questions, best practices, and sources of help. This is just sort of a very basic piece of information, right? Your renter's policy has your name and address on it, basically covers the cost to clean or replace your belongings, what you would take with you if you moved, all right? Not any of the fixtures in the unit that belong to the landlord. Also coverage for additional expenses until you can relocate, right? So it's mostly about your contents and also your temporary rent and relocation expenses. Very common for people to think that their landlord policy would also cover them. That's just not the case. The landlord's insurance covers the cost to remediate the property, repairs, rebuilding. It does not cover you or your possessions or your moving expenses. These are some of the frequently asked questions that we get. How do I get my claim settled fairly? Do I have to do an itemized inventory? How do I know how much coverage I have for relocation, temporary rent? Can my personal property be safely cleaned? Or does it need to be replaced? And when can I move back in safely, right? And that's where we recommend that you have the landlord show you post remediation test results. If you were renting a home, not a unit, and that home is gone, you have the same kind of questions. How do I get my claims settled? Do I have to do an itemized inventory? Very, very similar. What if I'm underinsured? Obviously, if you are not going to have a place to move back into, it makes it a little harder to have enough ALE temporary rent coverage to cover that time. If you're able to move back into the cleaned old unit, that's a different situation, right? And whether you have continuing rent obligations at the destroyed home, that's a straightforward no. Your lease is automatically voided if the place doesn't exist or is uninhabitable. Um, and these are a couple resources for tenants in LA. So the Legal Aid Foundation in LA is a good resource. I'm sure a lot of you are already using them to give you some legal aid. I'm sorry, pro bono legal answers to questions about your landlord and your rights as a tenant. There's also the Pasadena Tenants Union. They have produced a guide for fire impacted tenants. Um, the Neighborhood Legal Services of LA County has some very good resources if you didn't know about them. And then the county puts out this information for landlords and tenants um, at this website. Okay. Annie, what is this? What's a case manager?
So if you came to the Disaster Resource Center, you would have hopefully have been introduced to Catholic Charities Case Management or ENLA Case Management, and you would have signed up for it. Basically, those people know all the resources that you have already utilized and what's available to you. They are standing up right now. They will triage through the survivors that they have on their list to see basically who has what needs. And obviously people who don't have housing will come first, but they'll triage through, and when they get to you, they'll see how you're going. They will see what your needs are and help you fill some gaps.
So they're
So
kind of like a traffic, they'll sort of direct you to different agencies, right? Okay,
yeah, yeah, they'll help you with your basic needs, but they'll also help you if there's grants out there, household needs, advocacy, whatever that thing that you're stuck on, they can help with that.
great. Okay, and then FEMA. Um, Hopefully, if you were impacted by this disaster, you registered with FEMA, and if you have ongoing housing needs, and you've applied for that housing assistance, we know that rents were already very high in the area and temporary housing, very short supply, a lot of competition, even though the county and the governor has put out all these no gouging, no rent gouging rules. We know it still can be tough to find a temporary living or a permanent living situation, replacement situation that you can afford with on your budget. So for FEMA housing assistance, typically you apply, you're going to get denied if you have any insurance at all, and then you need to reapply and appeal again. These are just some sources of support and help us, of course. The Department of Insurance is a really important one because if you come to them for help with a renter's insurance claim and And your insurance company is legally required to respond to them, right? So like maybe they would ghost you. They can't ghost the DOI. I mean, they're legally not allowed to ghost you. But the bottom line is it's just one free way to get more attention, right? 211, Annie, is 211 going to be kind of the same as Catholic Charities in terms of where they're going to send you?
Yes, yes, there is 5 different disaster case management teams standing up because of the magnitude of this disaster.
Okay. And then for your elected officials, we mentioned that because the Department of Insurance has a special kind of ombudsperson who, if a complaint comes in through an elected official, it gets a little bit of special handling. So another kind of place to be that squeaky wheel if you are not getting treated fairly by an insurance company is to go to your local elected officials and the DOI at the same time. Alexis, I want to ask you a question. Professional advocates are on this list as a source of support. When you were working as a public adjuster, did you have renter clients? It seems kind of, it would be fairly rare for a renter to be able to hire a public adjuster. Is that true?
It was rare, but they became part of a lot of my clients' claims in the sense that if I had a client who had a triplex or a duplex property and we had tenants that we were working with as part and through the claim, there was communication with the tenants. But be prepared that the professional advocates are really working for your client, which is probably the homeowner or the apartment owner. So, you might get a little advice from that professional advocate, like a public adjuster, but do not count on it. Okay.
They're going to be representing the property owner.
Yes.
Okay, so where do you start? Well, by now we assume all of you are probably already all the way through this list, that you have notified your insurance company, you've opened a claim, you've got a copy of your policy. We recommend having an extra copy so you can highlight and write notes. Saving all receipts is very important, tracking your expenses. And then you're going to hear this a couple times tonight, maybe more than a couple times. Keeping a daily journal or diary where you record all your communications and updates, phone numbers, is really going to help you just keep forward momentum through this process. And being in the habit of sending emails confirming conversations that you have with your insurance company or a cleaning company that they have hired or that the landlord has hired. It's just a good habit to get into. It's not a normal, most of us don't think, oh, I just had a phone conversation with somebody. Now I'm going to send them an email, right? But that's what we recommend doing just to keep that paper trail clean. A few quick reminders. Please think of your insurance claim as a business transaction. Try, as emotional as these times are, try to keep it business-like, right? Recognize the reality. Your insurer is a for-profit company. They're motivated to limit what they pay out. And if there's a dispute, it's in your best interest to get independent opinions of the value of your losses and what you're entitled to. So with your contents claim, which we will be getting into a little bit in a minute, you don't need to just take what the insurance company says as gospel, right, about the value of your possessions and how much they should be depreciated. Remember that insurance is a vehicle to get you back where you were before a loss, but it doesn't drive itself. You really do need to be proactive. And there's lots of legalese in insurance policies. So even though we say to people, get a copy of your policy and read it, we fully understand that insurance policy language can be confusing for even a judge. It's just legalese, it's hard. So that's why, sticking with your declarations page is really important. And we're going to go through that in a minute. Should you expect a fight? Look, some claims go smoothly. We certainly hope yours does, but the more dollars that are at stake, the more common it is for there to be disputes, and being politely assertive is our recommendation. So again, this is us reminding you about that paper trail, right? These are all the reasons that you want to keep that paper trail current, right? It confirms you're cooperating. It tracks problems and open items. It points out specific things the insurance company has or hasn't done, things they haven't answered you on, right? And it just empowers you. That's the bottom line. So, Alexis, tell us what are we talking about here?
So, as part of your renter's policy, you have coverage for your contents. And depending on what type of loss you have, especially if you have a total loss, you have nothing left, there is no reason that you should not ask your adjuster to cash out or give you your policy limits. You decided your coverage limit, the insurance company charged you a premium for it. There is no reason that you need to go through this itemization process. It does not hurt to ask. It's not a guarantee that the carrier is going to say, yes, okay, Mr. Smith, we're going to pay you your limit. But we have some great resources. These are 3 links to publications that you can custom and tailor and send to your adjuster and ask them, hey, listen, we're in a bad situation. Can we get our policy limits? We've lost everything. Can you waive this requirement that you're asking me to inventory and put a list together of every single thing I lost? My toothbrushes, my hair clips, my shoes, all of these things. And, I can't tell you what the likelihood of your carrier giving you a policy limit payment is, but it does not hurt to ask, and we encourage you to do it.
And just so that you know, if you have already, you might know this already. The Department of Insurance, the commissioner put a bulletin out using what's often called his bully pulpit, meaning he can ask insurers to do something that they're not legally required to do. And he has asked them, he used the bully pulpit to say to insurance companies, you should not make people itemize their contents lists here. This is a giant catastrophe. It's traumatic for people. It's painful. Some insurers said yes, most of them said no. There is a bill pending in the legislature that would change the law, but even if it passes, it won't be retroactive. So when interacting with the insurance company, these are the words we recommend. Polite assertiveness, right? You get more flies with honey, even though it is hard not to express your frustration. So if you don't have a copy of your policy, you can use our sample letter or you can call the DOI hotline because the insurance company should have already given you that policy, right? What we call the declarations page, we don't call it that. That's what it's called. Those are, you're going to see some examples of it in a minute. The declarations page is the key to what's in your policy, right? Your policy may not look the same as somebody else's, but it should contain all that basic information, your name, the location, the date, and what kind of coverage you bought. And here we go. So Alexis, talk us through a little what we're seeing here.
Yeah, so we redacted some private information here, but your declarations page is going to give you your policy period. It is typically good for 1 year's time. Whatever your policy period is, you should have the declaration page for the policy in effect for this particular fire. You've got different buckets of coverage. Personal property, we often call it content coverage. It will have a dollar amount listed, like this one says $10,000. Loss of use, that is also called additional living expense. That's going to cover things like additional rent, relocation, mileage going back and forth from a temporary house, those kinds of things. Those are the 2 biggest ones that you're going to be working with at this point. It's also going to list your deductible. In this case, with the Lemonade policy, they have a $250 deductible. What is also very important, which it doesn't say on this particular example, is whether your policy is replacement cost coverage or an actual value policy. So this one again, we're looking at it just a little bit different policy outline. We're seeing coverage C, personal property, coverage D, loss of use. This one has a $500 deductible. A little bit different, but it's also showing and outlining how much you're paying for premium. These are the things you should be looking for if you're not familiar with your policy. Those are the big ones for you guys right now. The coverage C, the contents, personal property, loss of use, and then your deductible. What you have to pay the first part of your claim, $500 in this case.
And so you can see that pretty low limits here, right? This is kind of typical. So 10,000 in both, these are 2 different policies, 10,000 in one and 10,003 in the other. Only 3,000 for loss of use in one and 9,000 in the other. So we assume a lot of you are underinsured. We know that you are for your temporary rent. Here's a third one. Alexis, what do we see?
So this one's a little bit different. You want to take a look at the loss of use. So loss of use, that temporary coverage you have to relocate, to take care of additional expenses while your house is being cleaned so you can move back in, or permanent, that gap period between if you've totally lost everything and your rental is gone and now you have to find a new rental, there's this gap period of time where you need to be in a hotel or maybe some temporary housing until you find another permanent rental. This one says actual loss sustained. That's a little bit different. That means it's actually going to cover whatever those additional costs are. There is not a dollar limit to those additional costs. That's really, really important to know. That gives you a little more flexibility, more freedom. It's also typically associated with a little bit of a higher valued policy. Now you look at this one, personal property is $65,000. It's much higher than the last two examples that we saw. So when you're looking at your policy, if you have a dollar limit by loss of use, that is the most that the policy and the carrier will pay regardless of what your temporary housing is going to be. So be aware of that limit. You might blow through that limit very, very quickly. But this one is more like, this one gives you a lot more coverage and it gives you time to really find the right replacement property for you to rent.
Yeah, and still not specifying whether the coverage is actual cash value or replacement cost value, which
Right.
we'll talk about in a minute. Note at the bottom where it says home computer 10,000, it's very common for policies to limit what they pay for certain specific items like business property. Alexis, this happens all the time. People say, well, can I, my boyfriend was, crashing with me. His stuff got destroyed. Can I put a claim in for his stuff? What's the answer?
Yeah. Be prepared that the carrier might start asking more questions. Your adjuster may ask, well, how, is your boyfriend on the lease? Does he have, how long has he been there? Is he there for just the weekend here and there? Those kinds of things. Your renter's policy is designed to cover the named insured. If it's your policy, you're on the policy, it's covering you. If your boyfriend is really living at the property full time and he is not on that policy, be prepared that his personal property is not going to be covered by your policy. It's not the intention of the policy to cover other people, other renters, other friends who are shacking up with you or living there or subleasing your property. So just know that. Now, if you had a situation where you were borrowing camping equipment from a friend, the camping equipment was at your house, and it was temporary, the intention was to give the camping equipment back to your friend after your trip, that's a different scenario. Most likely that is going to be covered by your policy because you're taking care of someone's property that is in your care, custody, control. It's temporary. That is something that should be covered by your policy.
Gotcha. Okay. So what is covered? It's what you would take if you moved, your belongings. And then we've already covered that how to find your limit, that you can ask for a cash advance. The law doesn't require it if it's not a total loss, but you can ask. And just like we mentioned earlier, you can ask for a waiver of that painful itemization requirement. All right, these are just some examples of some of the sub limits that you might see. Computers, money, other things you'll see, jewelry, firearms, things like that. Um, you might see. Here's a rental policy that has a whole lot of internal limits. Okay. These are some of the items that are usually not covered. Animals, birds, and fish, just like Alexis just covered. Property of people who are not named on the policy, but maybe should have been, but that because they were living there, right? Motor vehicles, recreational vehicles not covered. Okay, Alexis, what would tell us about RC and ACV?
So replacement cost coverage is what it would cost you to replace your items in today's market value. So let's say you had a TV that you purchased 3 years ago, you spent $500 for it. That TV, that same size, make, model TV is now $300. That's what and you had to replace it. that's what your policy owes you. If you don't have replacement cost coverage, you are going to get the value of your property in today's market, that $300, for example, in that TV example, but they are going to depreciate it. So if that TV is 5 years old, that TV is going to be depreciated. That replacement value is going to be depreciated. So just because you see something for, $300 for the TV does not mean that the carrier owes you that. They're gonna depreciate it based on the age of it and the condition. And that's a big one. Condition is how, is it worn? Or is it something that you keep meticulous? Is it a living room couch that you barely sit on except for Christmas and Easter versus the family couch that the dog sits on, the kids are scratching up, that has gotten well worn? That item is going to be depreciated more just because of its condition. And they could be the same age, but that condition makes a big difference. So if you do need to itemize your inventory, it's really important to try to be as specific as possible. If you can remember the month or the season that you purchased something, try to be as specific, because that time frame will either add or subtract value that you can get in dollars for those items. It's
Yep.
important.
And this is just how we're trying to like illustrate it so you can understand that sort of that Craigslist versus versus Target.
And
What
Alexis,
what
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead. No.
Alexis, this is the same as with a homeowner's policy, correct?
The
Where you
same
have to
process,
replace
yeah.
it, so they'll depreciate it, and then you have to replace it to get the difference between
Yes.
the depreciated value.
Yes. So even if your renter's policy says you have a replacement cost value policy, you are not going to get that replacement cost value until you actually repurchase that item or something comparable and submit a receipt. So you do have that coverage, but there is a condition. You actually have to spend the money to get that little bit of depreciation. The carrier holds that back. It's almost like that money is sitting in an escrow waiting for you to spend it. And they'll hold it there for you, and you don't have to replace everything at once. You can do things in chunks. And I always, as an adjuster, recommended, hey, replace the things you need right away, replace the big ticket items where you see a lot of depreciation being held back by the carrier, because you want that money. That's your money. Don't let the carrier hold that money.
Okay, thank you. So Annie, talk to us about we have helped people, or how people get through this process of having to create an inventory.
Yeah, this is one of the most painful things that you can do as a survivor. We do have some free tools. We have a contents list to jog your memory that you can use. You can print it up. But there's some tips to all of this. You're going to do your high-end items first, but you can also go to wherever you normally shop for your basics. Is it Walmart? Is it Target? And you can ask to sign up for a gift registry and just go around the store with one of those Telzon guns in your hands and scan everything that you had in your home. Women generally have 4 or 5 shampoos or conditioners that they don't even use, but you had them. So, cleaning supplies, laundry detergent, foil, saran wrap, school supplies, all of that stuff can be captured with just a click of the button. And then at the end, they'll print it up and you make a copy, write partial list on the bottom and the date, and send that in. And you can also do that with wherever you bought your kitchen items, your silverware, your plates, whether you shopped at Macy's or Nordstrom's or JCPenney's, they'll allow you to do the same thing. And that's an easier way of capturing a lot of the items that are time consuming in having to do the investigation on.
Yep. Very good. Okay. These are some just examples of some of the free resources that we offer on our website for getting through this painstaking process of creating your itemized inventory, and standing your ground on fair depreciation. Not a lot of adjusters, they're overloaded, they have too many files, they try to depreciate your stuff by say 15% across the board, that's not legal, it's not proper. Each item, it's a little bit, I mean, it can be pretty nitpicky. Alexis, I mean, isn't that's kind of most of what a public adjuster puts their time into, right? Is countering excessive depreciation.
Yeah, and to Annie's point, as you're going through the inventory process, be easy with yourself. It is absolutely normal and par for the course that you start this inventory, you submit your inventory, and you think you did a pretty good job. Let's just say you hit the kitchen and you were working with the kitchen. 2 days later, you realize, oh my God, I went to go grab this spoon and I didn't put that on the list. So that's to Amy's point in UP, that's why we say keep a notepad and a notebook. Just start listing all those things that you forgot. And then your carrier is going to get this inventory. They're going to process it. You're going to tell the carrier how old things were, what condition they are. Guaranteed. I will say 100% out of the 100% of the time, the carrier will make mistakes in processing your inventory. They will either improperly depreciate it, like Amy said, they'll give you like a blanket depreciation across the board. They will get the dates wrong and the ages wrong, or more importantly, they will just price out a totally different, irrelevant item than you had. So the money is in the details. So instead of just telling them 65-inch TV, try to be as specific with the brand, with whatever, bells and whistles that TV had, because that makes a big difference on that replacement cost price. So don't be alarmed, be prepared that when you get that priced inventory back from the carrier, there are going to be mistakes. And this is part of this due diligence process you need to do, which is unfortunately kind of go through your inventory and make sure, hey, I got the right price for this, but they took off too many years of depreciation. Or, wow, this price is not nearly what I paid for it or what I'm finding. And then you're going to have to create almost your own secondary list, a rebuttal to this inventory saying, number 5, number 10, number 11 are wrong. And work with your adjuster to get those prices accurate, make sure the depreciation is correct. And it is a little bit of a tennis match back and forth. So to our point here, we say do not necessarily agree that your adjuster is processing your claim properly or correctly the first time around. It is going to be a cycle that you're going to go through with your adjuster or the second adjuster or the third adjuster that you have, very common. And just breathe easy, know that you're doing your work, they're doing their work, and there's bound to be mistakes on both sides. It just happens.
And supplemental claims happen all the time. Oh, I forgot this, I forgot that.
Yeah.
Plenty of time to add on if you remember things down the road.
And you will. And
Yes.
Amy is going to, the other Amy, that is our little person behind the screen, is going to put a link in the chat for our contents webinar that we did. So that if you need more tools, you can watch that and capture all the value in your items.
So, and I think, yeah. So anytime you wanna, if you're having trouble figuring out where to find things on our website, you go to the events tab and you can find the last contents workshop we did, and that will be a shortcut. But again, in the library, that's where you'll find a lot of these links that we've been referring to in your disaster, the library that we set up for your fire. So loss of use, extra expenses due to losing the use of your rental, coverage and limits vary by company. You already saw, we went over the different declarations pages, and most people who are familiar with this process call them deck pages. So declaration, deck page. You heard me say ALE. That's just another, with an insurance land, there's often 3 different words to describe the exact same thing. So ALE is additional living expense. Same thing as loss of use. Same thing as temporary living expenses. It's just a different label for the same thing, right? And then it really depends on your policy. So this is we actually looked at this earlier. This is the policy that says actual loss sustained. There's another, these are 3 different examples of one that only gave 3,000, one that gave 9,000, one that was open-ended. Okay. Alexis, you want to cover this one?
Sure. So your ALE, additional living expense or loss of use coverage, is really designed to cover you temporarily. If your house is totally destroyed that you're renting, then to Amy's point that she mentioned earlier, your lease is null and void at that point. You have no house, there's nothing for you to, habitate. So you are looking for something to replace that lease, and you might need a hotel. You might even need a shorter lease, a 2-month, 3-month lease, which is really, really hard to find, if at all, in the Los Angeles area. But that is something that your policy is going to cover. Let's say you're paying $1,500 for your current place. You are displaced. Now you need to pay more money for a temporary house, and that's $2,000. That delta between what you were paying and what you now have to pay is covered under that ALE limit. All right. We did have a pre-submitted question that talked about the fact that, hey, I was in a hotel and now I've signed a new lease, a 1-year lease. Is my ALE coverage going to pick up the delta between my new lease and my old lease? Well, chances are probably not, because now you have permanently relocated to a new house designed to take the place of your old house that was destroyed. So think of this as kind of, again, that period in between where you were and where you need to be, or where you were and coming back to where you were because your house needs to be cleaned, or your landlord needs to do some small repairs, and you can move back. If you're in a hotel or a temporary house and now it's further from work or further from the kids' school, and now you're driving further, that additional mileage, not gas, mileage, is typically what is covered under ALE. A lot of people want to keep their gas receipts, but it's the actual additional mileage. And the carrier will calculate that based on the IRS mileage rate, which at this point is 70 cents a mile. So again, you're going to have to keep a log. You're not going to have to do it every single day for the rest of your time. But if you've got kind of a routine on a regular basis, a weekly basis, I recommend that you talk to your adjuster about creating that routine, listing the points where you work, where the kids go to school, where they have soccer, baseball practice. List those out, calculate the extra mileage, and say, hey, this is our regular, routine for the week. We do this every single week for the next 3 months. And your adjuster is probably willing to work with you and extrapolate all that mileage so you don't have to calculate that out daily. All right. Something to consider is that if you're renting a place and now this temporary house include your utilities. So now you're paying $2,000. It's the rent, it's the water, it's the electrical, it's all kit and caboodle together. But before, you were paying $2,000 and you had a PG&E bill and an electric bill and a water bill. So those utility expenses are different. And if you're paying less at the new place, be prepared that your adjuster is going to take that money off. So, but if you have to pay more for your utilities at a temporary place, that is also something covered by this ALE coverage. All right. So you're going to get questions from your adjuster. Don't get offended. They're just trying to figure out what your lifestyle is, because they want to ultimately try to help you maximize your policy benefits. That's what we all want to do. Yeah.
So I mean, the
So
main
here's some of these things. Yeah.
when you're trying to think about, does this expense that I have, does it qualify for coverage? You got to ask yourself, is this an expense I'm incurring because of the wildfire? So, for example, if you were already paying, um, for, you had your phone charges, you had your, your utilities. If you're not paying more, you're not going to be able to claim that, right? It's that additional, right? Is it, but for the wildfire, would you be right? Okay. Keep up that paper trail. Again, we're just going to keep reminding you of that, right? If you haven't found a replacement rental, how is that affecting your job, etc.? I think Alexis hit on this, that it's obviously best to get multi month ALE commitments to avoid the stress, but recognizing that a lot of you may not have enough coverage for that. But certainly if you do, that's the ideal. So these are the rules in California. Your insurer is supposed to respond to your communications within 15 days. Um, they technically have 40 days to pay or deny your claim. That almost never happens. If they need more time, they're supposed to explain in writing what additional information they need from you, and then they're supposed to send you a letter every 30 days. With a disaster of this magnitude, delays are going to be unavoidable. They just is a fact of life. But you are protected by these rules. So if you are getting ghosted, and we did get a question from somebody who's getting ghosted, that's not legal. They're not allowed to ghost you. So this is just a few reminders before we get into the questions. Get things in writing. Be that person that reconfirms things in writing, right? If you're communicating in emails or letters, emails is I think how most people do it, or if you're using an online portal to communicate with your insurer, just keep it professional, be concise, don't go on and on. Avoid venting frustrations and emotions to your adjuster. Alexis had a great line about this the other day. Alexis, where does that come from, our recommendation that you try to stay polite?
I know it's really frustrating for you guys. I'm just going to tell you what your adjuster is dealing with. You're not her only claim or his claim. And he or she probably has 100 other clients that they are working with too. And the last thing an adjuster wants to do is come into work at 8 o'clock in the morning and hear someone screaming on the phone. Now, granted, if you've called 10 times and you've left messages, you're allowed to get a little upset. But I'm going to tell you, I would rather work with someone who's professional. I am happy to call you back. My goal is to get your claim settled as quickly as possible too. But just understand that I am inundated as your adjuster with as many claims as you think I have. I probably have 10 times as many as that. So we're working fast, but we don't work fast enough. I know.
So, okay, please do, you're here, so you're already signed up. But if you have friends, neighbors that don't know about United Policyholders, really, really encourage you to tell them about us, because we're pretty unique. And we've been around for over 3 decades giving out this kind of free guidance. And a lot of the professionals that support us and that contribute their expertise to what we offer, they've all been doing this kind of work for a very long time as well. So we just encourage you to take advantage of us. Annie, tell us about Survivor to Survivor.
Survivor to Survivor is a webinar that we do once a month, and I moderate it. And basically, we come together as survivors and we share our wins, our losses. We commiserate together. We help each other. Somebody will say, you know, I'm having a problem with this insurance company navigating this problem. And somebody else from the Marshall Fire in Colorado might say, I dealt with that. If it's a short answer, we let them give it. If not, we put you in a breakout room and let you hash it out with them to get the best practices. And it's a great place to just kind of come and bond with other survivors.
And Annie, do we do breakout rooms for renters? Like, if, I think a lot of renters feel like, hey, it's a little bit like people who have a partial loss versus a total, like,
Right. We
really.
could. We haven't had a lot of renters on. Next time we're doing a separate room for, we've been doing 3 separate rooms because we've had a lot of interest and a lot of people signing up. We're going to do a separate room for smoke damage this next time. And if we find that we have a decent amount of renters, we can put you guys in a breakout room together to talk it out and put someone in there to kind of navigate things for you.
Great. So this is just a snapshot of our website. This is just a few of the events that are up already on the calendar, but these are all survivors, and that's if you go over to the events tab, which I just navigated away from, you'll find that. Alexis, what's Ask an Expert?
So Ask an Expert is a great area where you can sign up, you can ask a question. And we have a number of professional volunteers in various capacities, attorneys, public adjusters, financial advisors, brokers, myself included, and our staff, who will happily answer to the best of our ability questions that you have. We will not give legal advice. We try to answer everyone's question as quickly as possible, but you can also use the search function, and we encourage you to use the search function to see if we've already answered your question. A lot of times you will not be the first person asking that question or something similar, and look there first, but you're more than welcome to ask the question.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, our whole goal of having the libraries that we have is to make it possible for people to figure things out, do their own research and DIY, right? Do it yourself kind of thing. But a lot of people find that they've tried and they really need help. So we always recommend start with the DOI because it's free, right? They have a toll-free hotline. They will not be your free lawyer. They will not adjudicate a claim dispute. They won't act like a court. But they will, if it's a straightforward situation where your insurer is not following the rules, they will bring the insurer, they can bring the insurer into compliance. If it's a more complicated situation, chances are you're gonna need to go a little bit deeper and go to a professional. And we earlier in the slide deck was our link to our Find Help directory, which is on our website. You will find law firms, remediation firms. You will find public adjusters that support us and that specialize in providing services to people in your situation. These are some of our funders. We like to acknowledge their support. And then we're going to get into the questions. So that people submitted, and then we'll see if we still have some time to take more questions. Will insurance cover the cost of furniture for my temporary place? If you're not going to be taking that furniture to your new rebuild, I guess this means renting furniture. I'm not sure quite what this means.
They would have to, if they're not taking it to their new place, it would have to be a rental situation, I think.
So Alexis, can a renter claim rental furniture, like the cost of
Absolutely.
renting furniture?
Absolutely. The house that you were renting had furniture in it, beds in it. Absolutely. Typically, the carrier will rent furniture. They will not purchase you temporary furniture, just letting you know. But if you start replacing your own furniture, you can return the temporary furniture and use your own new furniture if you had to buy your own new contents.
Okay.
Yes.
I was told by my adjuster they pay for the difference between what my last rent was and what my new rent is. After 3 months of being in a hotel, finally getting a temporary rental, I signed a excuse me. I signed a year lease until I can get back to the Palisades. Now my adjuster is saying since I signed the lease, my loss of use funds are cut off. Even though he told me otherwise. He states the loss of use is only until I get settled in a new place. Seems vague. Is this legal? What would you like? How do you comment? Don't answer if it's legal or not.
Yeah, I'm not going to say whether it's legal or not because I don't know all the facts here. So let's presume that your home was lost entirely. Well, your lease is null and void. If you sign a new lease somewhere else, now you're permanent and stationary at a new location. And technically, based on the information given here, your adjuster is just telling you the right thing. They're going to pay for your temporary housing at the hotels, and they'll move you to the new house, but that's when they'll cut you off because realistically, you've started a new lease. It is always a point where you can talk to your adjuster, lay out your facts, lay out the situation. If there's a big difference in the new rent versus the old rent, or your landlord is rebuilding and your intention is to go back to the old house, and you've got something in writing from the landlord, those are all good talking points and negotiating points. Talk to your adjuster.
And what if
Thank you.
it's smoke damage and they're thinking that they're temporarily out?
So if they're temporarily out, these are the kind of conversations you want to have with your adjuster. These are kind of what I would say what I would recommend is, what if my house is smoke damage and it takes 6 months to repair? What should I do? I'm looking at renting something temporarily. Will my insurance cover it? So the best ammunition that I can give you is to be very proactive, talk to your adjuster about all the options that you're thinking about, because you don't want to get yourself into a financial situation where you've committed to a lease, you're out of pocket a lot of money, and you did not get your adjuster on board with your decisions. That's really, really important. It's so hard to go back after you've made those decisions.
Yep, yep. How do we substantiate items lost in the fire when our records have been destroyed? Many items were inherited or purchased through the years with great difficulty finding invoices or receipts. You do not need receipts. Most human beings do not keep receipts around, except for, major purchases. So Annie, you want to answer this, how you substantiate items? This kind of goes back to what we were talking about, our free resources for doing your list.
Well, and there are the adjusters out there who do ask you for receipts. And everybody comes in and they say, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to do this? I have a total loss. You can reach out to Amazon. If you've shopped at Amazon, you can reach out to your credit card company or to Costco. They will send you receipts. And then basically what you do is you just tell your adjuster, that's what I was able to capture.
So, I mean, I think very often if they're asking you for receipts, it's because they don't believe that you had something, or they think it's a high dollar item, because normally they shouldn't be asking you for receipts. It's
There
really
was a lot of them asking for receipts, a lot of them.
So somewhere else you can go. A lot of, as an adjuster, what I said is, okay, if you can't get a receipt, fine. Can you get on your social media outlets, in your Facebook? Can you find any pictures of holidays showing your kids riding the bike that they just got, or you with your camping equipment, anything? They just want to see that you owned it, and that your description matches, and the things that you are claiming match the type of lifestyle that you are claiming to have. That's really, really important.
It is important. And this has been for decades. In fact, one of the big arguments insurance companies make against the no list, for example, the, no list bill that's pending in the legislature, is they say, well, we don't know what you had. And so we do need you to list it, because your contents limit was a percentage of your dwelling. It wasn't really calibrated exactly to the value of your stuff. But you do not need to provide receipts. The only issue is, as we were just saying, if your insurance company thinks that you're claiming things you didn't have, and that happens. I've had adjusters say, geez, before the disaster, everyone shops at Target. Afterwards, they all shop at, Neiman Marcus. What's the deal? That's just paranoia on the part of the insurers. And there are, they've been burned over the years here and there, I'd say. And so again, being able to find the backup, some of the resources Annie mentioned, and Alexis, and big box stores, your credit card receipts, your friends and photos, and that kind of thing. Our USA adjuster is ghosting us. We've been waiting over a month for approval of a 6-month lease, and we are not getting response. So this is an absolute, file a request for assistance with the Department of Insurance. If they don't help you, you can consult with a lawyer. But again, I shouldn't say again, I don't think we covered this. If it's a relatively small dollar amount, it can be very hard to find a professional that will charge you a fair price to be your advocate. So that's why we always say start at the DOI, and then they should be able to, if it's a delay situation, they should be able to shake that loose. If there's a dispute over the dollars, that's where you may need to elevate and get some professional help. Anything either of you want to add to that?
Now this one says you've made numerous calls and emails and your adjuster isn't responding. Now that's one thing that is totally different. I will say that a lot of times in these claims where you have a lot of dollar value items lost, either your contents or your ALE, your adjuster needs to triage these requests up through their supervisor. And that supervisor might need to triage a payment request to their supervisor. And that's typically where people will see delays. Your adjuster should tell you about this process and kind of give you a timeline, and basically what is it? Under promise, over deliver. But it is very common for some of these payment requests take 30, 60, I've seen them take 90 days, unfortunately. So keep a log when you call, who you talk to. If they don't call you back, and to Amy's point, file a Department of Insurance complaint to try to shake that thing loose and get some help.
So we're grossly underinsured as far as personal, I'm sorry, Andy, did I cut off? Did you have something you wanted to add?
This is also where you want an email confirmation. You want to do a recap. And in a perfect world, which I know it's not a perfect world in LA and you have to jump on what you can get, you want to get this stuff approved before and then do a recap email. And as far as FEMA, once you exhaust your insurance, keep appealing FEMA, because they won't pay a ton for your loss of use, but they will help you with a lower number, like it's by HUD standards, to help you bridge that gap. That's why FEMA becomes so important.
Yeah, but I do want to keep expectations realistic, right? You to qualify for individual assistance, which was FEMA only has two ways to give you money. They have the housing assistance, which you're asking about personal property here, and they have an individual assistance grant, and the maximum individual assistance grant is 42,000, and the average grant is about 5,000, and it's income determined. So if your income is above their threshold for individual assistance, you're not going to get money from FEMA, period. So that I just want people to be realistic about that, and know that there's a lot of charitable funds that are starting to pop up in LA, private charitable funds. So that may be another way to go, rather than banging your head against a wall with FEMA. Um, I evacuated for 2 weeks as the fires were getting close, and a windstorm was the next day. Thankfully, my apartment didn't burn down. I submitted a loss of use claim. Okay, so Alexis, we talked about this. This person is asking that their loss of use claim is getting denied because they're saying, the insurance company is saying, we need to see a mandatory evacuation order for your address. Now, we don't know this person's zip code, but Alexis, is there a way to figure out whether there was a mandatory evacuation in place for this particular street that this person lives on in Sherman Oaks?
Yeah, and you can go to the Los Angeles Fire Department or firedistrict.org. So LAFD.org, and they will list all the mandatory evacuations. There's actually maps that you can go to, and it will circle the areas. So, just start there, because it will give a timeline and a table of all of these different evacuations. And your adjuster, yeah, so your adjuster is getting really nitpicky, unfortunately, about this stuff. But start with this website, and we'll put it in the chat. Make sure that you can see it, and start there to give your adjuster that information.
Thank you. Okay, we rented in Altadena. Our rental was not destroyed. However, neighbors have been taking samples and finding asbestos and lead. We are hearing about this every day. It's a huge problem. I asked our landlord about cleaning. We have young children. The landlord has her own sad story. Do we have a recourse? This is really a landlord-tenant legal question that we don't have the expertise or insurance to answer. I think, this is all we can recommend is keeping a good journal of what has happened, and then check one of those resources that we put earlier in the deck, the legal aid, the LA, so downtown LA legal services. Okay. I think we already answered this. This is a dupe. Okay. Another ghosting situation. Insurance adjuster won't return calls for 6 weeks. online it says my claim is closed, but it isn't. So definitely a request for assistance with the Department of Insurance, no question about that one. Um, Alexis, though, you can request that a claim get reopened.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just because your claim is showing closed, that could be an internal error. There's a number of reasons, but the biggest thing that I would say on this case is this person did not get their calls returned. So very, very important. Follow up by mail. Email is better. Keep a paper trail. If you can't get a response from the adjuster, my recommendation would be to get the 800 number or the general claims number for your carrier. And it's going to take some time, but triage through that system and get to a supervisor. Write down the name of the supervisor. If you left a voicemail, write down the name and the time that you did it, but you try to triage through your adjuster. Don't look at your adjuster as the be all end all of your claim. You can get it open, you can get to a supervisor, but it's just going to be more work for you. And follow up via email or mail. Paper trail is key.
You know, I'm just going to go back for one split second to this one that I said is a legal question. If the person who asked this question is still on, I would recommend that you tell your landlady about the smoke damage webinar that we did a couple weeks ago. Amy, if you can put the link to that in the chat. We did a 90-minute one of these webinars where we had a panel with an industrial hygienist and an adjuster and an attorney. And that would be something good for your landlady to know about if she doesn't know about it already. Okay. Now this sounds like it was submitted by somebody who didn't actually have a claim, and I'm going to go through answering this, but I did want to let folks know that we did open up the Q&A. We are opening it up. It may not be open quite yet. It will be open in about a minute, I think. And so if there are additional questions, you'll be able to, yeah, I don't see it. I don't see it. Annie or Alexis, do you see it?
I see it.
You see it.
Yeah, no open questions yet.
Okay. What are the top 3 to 5 things renters can do before a disaster happens to make it easier to deal with insurance? Well, you can certainly make an inventory. You can certainly take your cell phone, put it on video, walk around your apartment and record what you had. It's a little painful to be talking about that now because I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, well, I wish I had done that. But that's number one. Keeping, if you have any kind of unusual items that that were not listed on your policy, then you would definitely want to talk to the agent through whom you bought the policy or the insurer about getting coverage for those special items, your computer equipment, business equipment, it's collectibles, things like that. What are the most common gotchas that renters face when dealing with insurance? I think you heard a lot of that tonight. You heard, I don't know if I'd call it a gotcha. You heard inadequate limits. You heard inadequate personal property limits, inadequate temporary rent coverage. Those are the two biggest ones. um, what's the language you use to get an insurance company to increase limits? Well, if you're still at the buying side, you ask for higher limits. I haven't really heard about insurance companies saying no to increasing a renter's policy limit unless it's a standard type of this is all we offer. You hear that more with homeowners. You know that people say, well, I asked for more and they said this is all that I could buy. Which insurance companies are doing the right thing for LA wildfires? We get this question all the time, and we always say it really depends a lot more on the adjuster that got assigned to your claim or the adjusters than really the company. Because I mean, sure, some people you hear a lot of complaints about State Farm, but then again, they insure the largest number of people. So it sort of makes sense that you're going to hear a lot of complaints about them. You'll find people who have good experiences with one insurer and somebody who had bad experiences with the same person. Yeah. Okay, so do renters typically get a discount For home hardening, no. No, because if you're the owner of your property has done home hardening, their premium should get a break, but it's not going to affect you. It'd be great if they pass that break along to you in the form of lower rent, but that is pretty rare. I think that is the last one from that. Now we have a question. Um, it's not really a question. It's a sad story. So, Kevin, I'm very sorry that you don't have insurance and that you have that situation. So, we don't have information to help you tonight. I would go to legal aid. That's what I would do if I were in your situation. There are law firms also that are offering pro bono help, but if you don't have insurance, United Policyholders doesn't have the resources to help you, although we are very empathetic with your situation. We do have a question here, okay? My adjuster has had all reports, labs, and toxicity tests since mid-February. They're stalling on cleaning my space. Is my insurer required to cover my loss of use until I return if they're stalling? So, yeah, Alexis, let's talk about this a little bit. We know that part of the problem with the smoke situation is that there aren't really firm, clear, agreed upon standards for what constitutes smoke remediation and what constitutes acceptable indoor air quality. There's some of it, but we know that a lot of the findings right now are high levels of lead, and that's not safe for children at any level. So,
Okay.
Alexis, how would you answer this question?
Well, I mean, so my question, I guess, is this the renter asking about getting their personal belongings clean now that they have the toxicity reports, or could it be the landlord's insurance is stalling on cleaning? So you've got two different scenarios there. Let's just say and it really doesn't matter for either one, but your carrier should continue to pay for your loss of use, temporary housing, while they're still evaluating. I know it is frustrating. I know that they have not, given you an answer, but you should not be kicked out of any temporary housing because it's taking them time to evaluate your claim. And then once they do, it might actually take time for the proper vendor to get you scheduled to get the cleaning done or the replacement of things done. And then testing, post clearance testing, to come back to make sure that that is all taken care of, that it is safe for your family to move back in. So yes, I'm going to assure you that you should have temporary housing. Your carrier should not. And if for whatever reason they try to push back, definitely go to the Department of Insurance. Definitely try to triage the claim up to supervisor levels as well. Just don't take that answer from your adjuster at point blank.
Okay. So I'm not seeing any more questions. And I want to say thank you to my colleagues, Annie Barber, Alexis Ricci, and Amy Ludwig, who you can't see, who's behind the scenes. As promised, we will have the recording of tonight's webinar up on our website for you to watch at your convenience. And if we didn't answer your questions tonight, well, I see one more popped up there. Okay, two more. When your landlord tries to get to the move back in and set the house, and you get a second opinion. Um, well, yeah, this is a question of like, can you be secure that the place is clean? And this is really a tough one. Um, uh, for how can you be sure that the place that your landlord is saying is okay? I mean, the real answer is you need to get an independent opinion from a professional certifying it. So I would ask the landlord to provide you with something in writing from a qualified professional that certifies that the rental unit is habitable and safe. And unless they will give you that in writing, not their own personal opinion, but an opinion from a professional, that's what I would wait for. And again, that would be um, uh, I see. Okay. Um, landlord's still charging you rent and you're not there. Yeah, this is really a landlord tenant legal question, Brenda. And I would go to one of those resources that we identified in one of the earlier slides. If I had a previous injury but hurt myself escaping the fire, does that, again, Charlene, that would be a question, that's really a question about your landlord, whether there would be coverage under your landlord's policy for if there was something that the landlord did that caused the injury. Otherwise, there has to be somebody responsible for the injury. If it was an injury just because of the situation, if you're in Eden, if you're in the Eden Canyon area, that would be, you could, that would be a reason to join the lawsuits against San Diego, I'm sorry, SoCal Edison. But your insurance company is not going to have responsibility because they were not the cause of your injury. And I'm so sorry to hear about that. Okay. So we answered that one. What if you got money from FEMA for lodging, you used it, they denied the claim of repaying, as they said in the beginning, because I accept your money from Red Cross and other help? So these are FEMA questions I don't feel comfortable answering. Annie, if you know the answer, I mean, again, these are, this is where a case manager would help you, right? If you, if FEMA is, if you're asking for more money than they gave you, I would say case manager.
Yeah, and there's something called duplication of benefits in disasters, and that's what this is hitting on, I believe. You're not supposed to be able to make a profit. So if you've already received money to cover something, you can't receive it from another nonprofit or entity. And that's where it gets into the gray area.
So earlier in the slide deck, Kevin, we had the Catholic Charities website. So it's Catholic Charities. Amy, if it's possible to put that in the chat again, the website for Catholic Charities, that would be great. And that's for getting a case manager. And then Ellum, again, I'm sorry, so sorry that you did not have insurance. But not having insurance does put you in a better position to get help from FEMA. And we wish you luck with that. Okay, we're going to wrap up now because I think we're just getting a lot of questions that are not related to insurance. And I really, we are very empathetic to the situations that folks are describing in the chat, but since they don't relate to renters insurance, and that's our topic here, we're going to wrap up and we're going to say that we're rooting for all of you and your neighbors impacted by these tragic fires. We are very grateful to be able to bring our insurance-focused expertise to you and our recovery-focused expertise. We hope tonight's program was helpful, and we remain available as best we can to answer questions. But again, FEMA, they have lots of information on their own website, and a case manager will get you on track with them. Legal aid will get you on track with landlord-tenant issues, and we've put the case management link in for Catholic Charities. So again, another thank you to my team and to our funders. We wish you all better health, better fortunes in the months and years ahead. And we're grateful to have been able to provide tonight's program. And good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Take care.